Hello and welcome to this video where we'll take a little look at different assets that you can bring in from the asset store. Now, the way it works basically is it will take you to a website. So I think under here we can go to Window and then we see Asset Store, and then what it will do, it says it's moved, and so we go search online and it will open up a window here where we can find our assets. It is in Japanese at the moment. That's okay. We'll just sort of deal with that. We can search for things here. Actually, give me a second and let me change this to English. Okay, so that seems to be better. It seems to be in English. So what we want to do is just find something that we can put into our game. Now, you have to have an account. So if you've logged in as me, that's fine. Or if you have your own account, you might have to log in as yourself. That's fine. I don't know. I always put trees into my game. Okay, so here's a tree, and you just search for trees. Now, when you go down, it will sort of bring in all these things. Now, some of them are not just trees as we think of trees, but they might be programming trees as well. You can come down to the price and make sure that you've got the free assets on it. Don't expect you to be purchasing anything. These ones here, they say they're purchased because in the past I have put them in to my game. Okay, let's take one that I haven't done before. And so depending on, what kind of tree you want to put in, feel free. So realistic trees sounds good. So I click on that and and I can add to my assets. And you can agree because something's updated there. And so it's been added to my assets. And then I can go to Open with Unity. So probably say OK, Open with Unity, enter. So now it will go back to where I was. And you can see here, these are all lots of things that I've got accessible to me. It might take a minute or two, realistic trees. And then I haven't actually downloaded it. It's just given me access to it. So I'd say download. And it might take a minute or two to download it, depending on how big the package is. And then what you'll have is another thing that says import. So we'll import it, and that will basically open this up. And at the start, it's hard to know, which tree you want. So I would just import it all for the moment. And once that is done, then you can close this up. And I guess we don't really need this window, but I'll leave it there. And what you'll notice is that down in here into your assets folder, you have a new folder, or a series of folders in this case, that have different trees. So I'd click on that and just kind of see what you've got. Now, generally what you're looking for are the prefabs. And by the looks of it, how they've organized it here, these look like the prefabs, right? I can see it with that blue, and it does say prefab on it as well, which is very useful. These other ones are probably materials, looks like a bump map. If I go into here, yeah, most of these are the materials / bump map / whatever else is going on in there. So generally what you'll want is to find something that has the name prefab on it. And so if I can take that one tree, and so it says it's got all these different things, okay, that's fine, that's how it's made. I can just drag it in, okay? So it does look like a pretty realistic tree. It's a little bit big, but just like before, you could scale it. So I'm going to scale it all down maybe to 0.25, 25%. Yeah, whatever. Let's just take a look at that. I'm going to just zoom in on it. So maybe a little small. Let's just make that 0.5. Okay, there we go. So now in my game, I can hit play. And I've got a tree. Now, sometimes the trees come in with a collision, sometimes they don't. So what I'm just going to check here is, I can go right through. So it takes a little bit away from the, the aesthetics of the game. So what I might want to do is add a collider here. And so I think you can, right in here, we could add a collider. And so you can see there's different types of colliders. There's a box collider, there's a capsule collider. And so probably on this one, I would go with the capsule collider. Now, it's probably going to do the whole thing. And so I'll just make it smaller. So again, I'm going to reduce the radius. Now, for some reason, it's going over the, because I'm putting it on the ground. Let us go back. Don't do that. Click on your tree object and then come down here somewhere. I should be able to add the component. There it is. And that capsule collider. That's better. Okay, so now it's centered over the tree. Obviously, we don't, probably not the whole tree, because what we're going to find is that, well, you might not go up that high, but I'm going to edit it down. So we're going to reduce the radius, so more into almost like a cylinder. And so again, I'm just sort of going to zoom in a little bit. It's a little hard to see on this green background. I'm going to bring it over a little bit, so probably on the x-axis. Just sort of center it. Again, make it a little bit thinner. There we go. Something like that. Okay, so now it looks like I've got a bit of a collider. I guess I could move it back a bit on the Z. And then on there. There, something like that. Okay, it might not be perfect, but I don't want to spend too much time working around on this. So if I hit play now, hopefully with that capsule collider in that spot, I'll find it hits and doesn't actually go through it. There, now it bumps into the tree, making it a little bit more realistic, okay? So that's something that you might want to do. Again, the asset store, wherever it went here, has got lots and lots and lots of things in it. So you could search for anything you want. Say instead of the pickup, you wanted to do a coin. And so we've got these coins. And so you could look through, okay, this looks like that. Again, setting the free assets to 44. And so then you've got these different coins. So it looks like people have used these in the past. Different things that you could pick up. Animated coin. You'd probably want a 3D coin, just so that it's sort of consistent with what the game is here. But definitely things that you can find that would work in your game. You could find sounds. So I don't know, like there's audio. So coin sound maybe, right? So there's the coins SFX. Bring those into the game and see what happens. Okay, lots of different things you can do. You can find in the asset store that will hopefully add to your game. One thing I'll just caution you: sometimes when you open one of these up, it does have a scene, and so what happens is students just click on the scene, like they might say sample scene, and then when they do that, if they had their original game called sample scene, then it gets destroyed. So just be very, very careful. If you're, like, that's why we call it sort of game here. Game usually doesn't come up. But you can see this one, there is a sample scene. There's a scene. This is what the scenes look like. It's called trees, and they just have all the trees. If it was called sample scene and I clicked on it and my game was called sample scene, it just overrides what we had before. So be very careful with that. You should have renamed your scene to something else other than scene or sample scene. But just be careful when you're opening up any of the assets. If there is a scene, then you do run the risk of overwriting your work. So just keep that in mind. If you're in doubt, make sure I come around and you ask me, and I can sort of guide you through that process. But just be a little bit wary when you're clicking on these scenes that happens. So for example, students will come to this, and fortunately nothing bad has happened, but they're in the scene and they're like, oh, Mr. Fleming, where did all my stuff go? Well, we'd have to go back to scenes and then open up your game scene. And hopefully, there we go. There's my game scene there. Okay, so just make sure that, if you did find one of these asset packs that you brought in had the same scene name as yours, be very careful with opening it. In fact, don't open it. Change at least, you could go in and change this one. So I could change this, just add some letters to it. And then at least it won't confuse its scenes. All right, so that's the asset store. Have fun with finding stuff to add to your game. And hopefully that will give you, maybe, if you work through the asset store, maybe that will give you some idea about what kind of things you want to add to your game.